Dear friends, good afternoon. On a Sunday, beginning of a new week, our inspiration series number 97. And I want to take a concept from this week's Torah portion. And here, in the Torah point of view, something very fascinating. And that is the idea of criticism. We all live within a society. We have people that we interact with. And there are times when we feel we have to criticize, we want to criticize, it's important to criticize, or sometimes we hold back from criticizing. And will criticism bring something good? Will it be taken always in a negative way and create a breakage between two people? So in this week's Torah portion, we find fascinatingly that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, who led the Jewish people so faithfully and incredibly, and always fighting on their behalf to God to keep them going and not to punish them even if they do something wrong and veer off the path. And we find that on the last 37 days of his life, when he gives his final talk to the Jewish people right before he passes away, at the end of the 40 years, here we find that Moshe criticizes the Jewish people. And not that he openly criticizes by name specific people, but Moshe talks to the Jewish people and in his conversation brings up or hints to various things that were done wrong, that the Jewish people took wrong decisions, the Jewish people just didn't appreciate what was coming to them from God. And he's hinting to all those criticisms to point out to the people that, remember, these things happened, and I want to make sure that they do not happen again. And you've learned your lesson, and now, as you enter into a new stage in your life, as a nation, these things will not happen again. So we find there's something very fascinating. Moshe spoke to the Jews many times. They were sometimes caught in very serious situations, but he did not criticize them at that time. All he did was talk to God on the Jewish people's behalf and beseech from God to forgive them. And even when there were times he wanted to get the Jewish people attention, he got very serious. He didn't really criticize the Jewish people. So why now criticize? At the end of your life, don't you want to leave with a good impression? Why criticize? So Moshe was so careful. He didn't want to criticize earlier on because very often you criticize once and then you start criticizing again. Very often many people who have issues with one another, they always bring up the same problems again and again. So Moshe didn't want to be the one who was constantly criticizing. But as well, Moshe Rabbeinu did not want the relationship to be one that they think that I judge you and I'm critical of you. He wanted it to be out of love and care for the Jewish people. But he couldn't leave this world without telling them the important messages. So he waited until his final conversation to tell them in the most beautiful and he couched it very, very well. So it shouldn't be taken personal, shouldn't be taken as vindictive. And Moshe's talking out of anger, but Moshe's talking out of love, he's talking out of care. And we're told actually in the Torah that we have to criticize each other. When you see someone doing something wrong, you have to tell them. Because if you don't tell them, how will they ever figure it out? But even though we have to tell them, there's so many conditions. You have to make sure that they're in the right space of mind to hear. You're not going to embarrass them at all. You're not going to tell them in front of other people they'll feel embarrassed. And you have to make sure that your criticism will be accepted or will be given over in a way that will be accepted. You have to do it out of love and out of care. As we know that the Kohanim were given the job of declaring people being a tsaras, a leper, because to be a leper means you have to be removed from society. You have to be quarantined. And you couldn't do that unless you did it out of love, and the Kohanim were known to have incredible love for each Jew. So therefore they could be the only ones, not even the rabbis, who will be able to declare someone a leper. And here's what the Torah tells us, how important it is to be careful what we do to others. We definitely have to motivate. We should not lie to others and tell them things about themselves that are not true. It actually demotivates people, and it makes people have a false sense of self. But even when you have to criticize, do it in the most beautiful, loving, caring way. Make sure that there's no fallout from it. And sometimes it only has to be done at the end of your life when you feel it's your last chance. So we're all living together. We're spending more time with each other. Use criticism. very, very, very sporadically, and only when needed, and if then, be very careful how you do it. Because then it becomes constructive, productive, and as the famous saying from the fifth Lubavitcher Rebbe, that you have to love criticism. Because the only way we're going to grow is when people tell us the truth about ourselves and the stark truth. But when we hear it, and it seems like it's couched with someone looking down on us, someone with extra ego and pride, we don't accept it. It looks to us. It looks to us as a negative, and something that that will definitely not take, and maybe delve into it. So let's see the best in others, and if we have to criticize, especially someone close to us, be so careful when you do it, how you do it. And there's a lot of guidance in the Torah, but if you do it the right way, it's productive and it brings you closer. If you do it in the wrong way, it's not productive, and it creates a greater fissure between both of you. So have a great day and all the best, my friends.